Welcome back to Polite Talks, everyone, and today I'm going to be ranking all of the main cast of the circus. So that's all of the current humans as well as the important previous humans, along with Kane and Bubble. I'm not counting any of the NPCs because you can cry about it all you want. I don't care about Gummy Goo. I'm doing this as a Polite Talks because it's not big enough to be a full video, but it's also not short enough to be a YouTube short. So I'm just doing a Polite Talks episode. But anyways, let's get started with the last character on the list. At number 12, we have Gangle. Say what you want, I don't care. Who genuinely likes Gangle? First of all, stop crying, please. Just stop crying. Especially in the finale. We see her, of all people, hysterically cry for the first time. Because usually when she cries, her tears don't change their shape, but literally at the end of the episode, after Jack's abstracted, she was bawling. You hated him. What are you crying for? I'm gonna throw two scenes in here that I like with Gangle, and that's it. The Tommy gun, which, okay, how can you not like that scene? And pretty much the entirety of episode 4, because that's her only good episode. In fact, that's the only episode where she isn't just a background character. I mean, at this point, we haven't talked about her at all. She's a background character, let's be honest. Also, I just can't. I am one of those people who just does not like anime, like, at all. And I also feel like her design is... She's probably the funnest to animate, and also probably the hardest to animate. But at the same time, I also hate her design. Because I feel like it's the weirdest one. But what annoys me the most about her probably is that even after when her and Zubul had that talk back in episode 6, we're talking and she supposedly figured out how to be happy, she still acted depressed every 5 seconds. Alright, number 11 is Scratch. Now, don't get me wrong, Scratch as a character has some really interesting lore. The problem is, I would have liked it if we'd actually, learned about that lore instead of just... Oh, this is Scratch. He worked with Kinger. He had a brain tumor. Okay, cool. Can we get some, more lore on him? That was a stutter and a half. He was so sidelined that we didn't even get to hear his voice in the show. Not only that, but we never even really found out what Kane did to him that caused him to abstract. Because according to Kinger, Kane messed with his mind file in some way. But we never find out what it was that Kane actually did to him. And this has led to a lot of theories to spark up during the episode 7, 8, and 9 timeline, but that ended up coming out to really nothing. Alright, number 10 is Bubble, and before you people freak out at me, just give me a second to explain. There are a lot of Bubble moments that made me crack up, especially in episode 3, after learning what he's actually supposed to be saying in that one part where everything he's saying is just reversed. It's actually kind of funny that they threw that gag in there. And one of the other things I laughed at with Bubble was in episode 8. Because originally, on my first watch of the episode, I had no clue what he was actually saying. It just sounded like he was saying random gibberish and got slower because he realized what he was saying was making no sense. Which is why I cracked up at that gag when I first watched it, because I didn't understand what he was actually saying. And even after finding out he's saying... I'm having a baby, it's still funny because the whole point of that gag is you think he's gonna say something related to I'm having fun, but then he just randomly gives birth. Anyways, enough about a very specific gag, and let's get into why I ranked Bubble this low. At the beginning of the show, I liked him, but then I feel like after, episode 5, he just kind of, stopped being important. Up until episode 8, when he just kind of, flipped Kane out. He was good in episode 8, though. The other thing I just can't understand about Bubble is, do you like Kane or do you not like Kane? It's very unclear. Anyway, enough about Bubble's feelings. Number 9 on the list is Queenie, another one who I feel like we really, really should have gotten a lot more information on. Think about it. What do we know about Queenie? We know she was Kinger's wife. We know she got trapped in the circus with him and was also a chess piece. We know she abstracted and was the last person to abstract of the original gang. We know she was into bugs, and we know what her voice sounds like. But other than that, we have no information on whether she actually worked alongside Kinger at CNA or not. At the beginning of episode 8, Kinger says he's sorry for roping her into this, which kind of makes it unclear whether she worked at CNA or he brought her from home to test one of the creations of Kane and then got trapped in the circus. But other than that, Queenie is a really nice character. I just wish we got more information on her, just like Scratch. Number 8 is Zubul. I feel like my favorite scene with them is at the beginning of episode 6, when Kane is trying to make the adventure for them, and they just keep arguing against him in every way possible. That whole argument between him and the humans at the beginning of episode 6 just cracks me up. I do think Zubul's design out of every character in the show is probably the coolest. I know this is going to make a lot of people mad, but Abstrategy is not the best ship in the show. I feel like Gangle and Zubul only had chemistry after episode 4. This is very similar to Stranger Things, where even though it's the most canon in the show, Mike and Eleven, Millie Bobby Brown and Finn Wolfhard, let's be honest, they don't have good chemistry. Now, similar to Funny Bunny, Max and Lucas, on the other hand, Caleb and Sadie do have good chemistry, which is why I prefer that ship over Maleven, just like I prefer Funny Bunny over Abstrategy. But anyway, back to Zubul. One of the things I do like about Zubul is how every episode they change. Now, while that would be a little bit annoying if I was doing something like hand-drawn cells for Digital Circus and I had to change up their look every single episode, it definitely is a good display of Zubul's character in general and their issues. Number 7 is Kaufmo. I love how throughout the series they kept foreshadowing him to be this, crazy guy who was, slowly losing his mind. And then the finale dropped, and he casually had the most chill, random, just random guy voice known to man. Out of all people, how was he the first guy to conjure Kane's exit out of insanity? Now, out of all things, I do have to say one thing, and the reason why he's this low on the list is because of the fact that this entire thing that happened with Jax and Ribbit is technically his fault. Now, it's not fully, because let's be honest, Jax made his own decision there. But specifically how Goose was asked about what would have happened if Kaufmo hadn't rung the doorbell. And she said something very homosexual. Now, judging by the fact that the entire fandom thinks that Jax is trans now, which, again, I can't get by and I'll explain later, that basically means him and Ribbit would have been getting busy if Kaufmo hadn't rung that doorbell. So while the entire thing is somewhat Kaufmo's fault, let's be honest, how could you not love him? He's the chillest character in this whole show. Number 6 is Ragatha. Now, Nate, if you're watching this, I know you despise her with a passion for some unknown reason. But I really wanted to talk about here how Ragatha kind of represented me for a really long time. Throughout the show, besides her abusive mother, Ragatha's other main issue is that she struggles to make friends. Specifically because she's worried that if she doesn't talk to someone for too long, or she's too rude to someone, or she doesn't act like that nice mom friend all the time, she's worried she's going to push them away. She tries too hard to get on their good side, and then she thinks she pushes them away. And for a long time at the beginning of this year, this was the way I used to feel. I've always been really socially awkward. And that's why up until, the beginning of my freshman year this year, I really struggled to make friends. Because I felt like that. I felt like if I didn't talk to everyone constantly, or if someone wasn't talking to me for even the smallest bit of time, I felt like they just didn't like me anymore. And I would blame it on myself, feeling like it was my fault. That's since changed, but even still, I think Ragatha is just such a good character in general. Because looking into her backstory with her mom, you really see just how dark her backstory is. If her mom was anything like she was during Kane's torture scene in episode 8, geez, I'm surprised she was even alive at all. So yeah, my personal connection to Ragatha might have pushed my bias up a little bit, but that's where Ragatha goes on this list. Alright, number 5 is the Froggy herself, Ribbit. Such a good character with such a good backstory, and honestly, I feel bad for her. What Jax did, regardless of it kind of being Kaufmo's fault, was not justified at all. And even after the whole thing went down, he still had time to talk to her about it, and he never did, which ultimately led to her abstraction. I do like her design too, by the way. Also, why is she so caked up for no reason? Other than that, I feel like Ribbit was just such a well-written character in general. We don't find much out about her backstory, but she definitely had some issues because we see right at the very beginning of the scene where Jax and Ribbit are talking in Ribbit's room, we see Jax tell her that he was glad he could cheer her up, which probably means she was upset about something. And her backstory that she briefly went into also in that scene gives us a little bit more insight into her life in the real world. It's part of the reason why Jax was somewhat able to connect with her for that short period of time, because her story about her cutting ties with her parents somewhat ties into Jax's strained relationship with his parents and what he eventually ended up doing to his mom. And even after all that, what happened to her in the end was not deserved at all. Honestly, her and Kaufmo would just be so fun to chill out with. Let's be honest, who wouldn't take that opportunity if they had the chance? Well, besides Jax, but we'll get there later. At number 4, we have Kinger. Not only does he have some of the most funny and just hilarious moments in the show, but I mean, come on, he's just so well written. And because he ties into the whole CNA Kane backstory, it makes me like him even more. Along with Ragatha, he also has one of the saddest backstories because he literally lost his wife. And on top of that, he also has the guilt of being part of the reason why they're trapped there, although that was kind of Scratch's fault. But he's just such a nice character to everybody. Like, there's a reason he's the one character that has no haters. Not even Jax hates on him, unless you count whatever the heck happened at the beginning of episode 9. But him being the dad of the group is just such a nice choice for his character. And the whole lucid in the darkness thing also works really well for the plot of the story, because it makes for some really, really nice character connection moments with him. So that's why Kinger gets this spot on the list. Top 3 time. At number 3, we have Pomni. First of all, she has the cutest design in the show. No, I'm not simping over Pomni. And she's also obviously the main character, so there's a lot that comes from that. And out of everyone there, just like Kinger says, she seemed to adjust so quickly. Even by episode 4, she knew exactly what she was doing. We even see her pretty much take lead of the group starting in episode 8. Honestly, in episode 7, too. And it really shows how much she's able to connect with all the other characters. And I mean, episode 6, Pomni, was really good, too. It only made Funny Bunny even better of a ship, but we'll talk about that in a second. But there's just so much to like about Pomni. And honestly, that's interesting, because out of everyone in the show, she probably has the most normal backstory that doesn't have some sad element to it. But even without a deep backstory, she still manages to be one of the best characters in the show. Now, parallel to that, next we're going to talk about Jax, who on the other hand is kind of the backstory that drives the show. Well, at least the finale. Up until the end of episode 6, there were so many funny gags with Jax. So much so that he quickly became my favorite character. Up until the end of episode 6. And then for episode 7, I just kind of liked the entire cast. And then after that, we'll talk about him next. But Jax, out of every character in the show, probably has the deepest backstory. After he pushed his mother off of him with a lot of force to the point where she could have been badly injured, he ran away and became homeless and never really knew what happened to her until he entered the circus. After that, he made some friends, but then because he can't let himself get too close to people, he ended up pushing them both away. Which is kind of on his own thing, because Ribbit never said anything about telling his secret to anyone. But, I guess he just has really severe trust issues. Now, if episode 6 up until the argument didn't make Funny Bunny canon, episode 9 definitely did. For starters, let's talk about Pomni's door inside Jax's mind. It's locked up because Jax wouldn't even know what to do if Pomni abstracted. He physically can't bear the thought of it. On top of that, there's that whole scene at the very end with him and Pomni hugging under the lamppost. If this isn't as Funny Bunny as it gets, I don't know what is. Also, come on, his character design is great too. Who doesn't love rabbits? And now it's time for the thing I've been waiting to rant about this entire video. Before I say this, I want to specify that I am not transphobic. But I cannot get behind this. Because what do you mean? We have had 8 episodes of this show, And after the 9th episode ends with only minor hints of this, you randomly drop it that he's trans. What do you mean? Also, there's so many times in the show where he's hitting on female characters. The entirety of episode 6, let's be honest. On top of that, he makes several transphobic jokes throughout the show. He literally says in episode 6, that's what everybody wants, a straight couple, implying that he is a guy, unless Pomni is randomly trans now too. And then, of course, he makes the reality's gay joke in the final episode, which, that is peak script writing right there. But yeah, Jax, just really good character, still can't get behind him being trans, but you know. And now, it's time for the final character on the list. So back to what I was saying earlier. After episode 6, Jax and Pomni had that whole argument. Jax wasn't really my favorite character anymore. He was up there, but he wasn't my favorite. I really had no specific favorite character in the show. And then after episode 7, I was kind of at a loss for what on earth just went down. Fast forward to March 20th of this year. And we get the absolute masterpiece that is episode 8 of The Amazing Digital Circus. 2 scenes in this episode will go down as some of my favorite things I have ever witnessed. First of all, we gotta talk about the Bubble-instigated office crash out. I have seen so many redubs of that thing with stuff I can't even say on here. But I mean, come on. It's Kane doing his first villain arc-y thing in the episode. Then we have the banger that is running the show. I was surprised because Alex can really sing. I still have that on my playlist. And then, of course, we have that ending scene, which will probably go down in history from now on as the best piece of cinema I've ever witnessed. I'm not even joking, I got chills watching that for the first time. I mean, this is I'm jealous of whoever got to animate that. He just straight up is just broken, completely. And then couple that with the music and just, the nature of the scene. Oh, my God. But, of course, we have to talk about how Kane has kind of been a villain from the beginning, but not really, because Episode 8 was his first real show of that. Up until then, he was always known to be the villain because he's basically the representation of Am, since the show is based off that book. But he was originally supposed to just be a goofy guy who didn't really realize what he was doing to the humans was causing them harm. However, after that in episode 8, after he got mad because they didn't like what he was doing for them, he just straight up went insane. Kane's whole thing is that originally he can't understand the concept of the real world. To him, the macroverse is just the endless CNA office. He doesn't know there's actually a real world, and that's why he doesn't understand that they actually want a way out of the circus. He thinks that the real world is just an adventure that he makes up for him. That's why all of his adventures aren't realistic enough for them, and why they don't like them, because all he knows is the creative, insane, cartoony logic that goes on in the circus. The wacky, weird stuff that he creates, like the Candy Canyon Kingdom or the Mildenhall Manor. They're all stuff from fictional stories because that's all he has knowledge of. He doesn't have that much knowledge of the real world, which means he can't create that stuff. However, when he finally lets go of the blue AI, which we'll call Abel, in episode 9, he's able to break free of that part of him that refuses to understand the humans. And after he did that whole search and found out what the internet was, he realized what the real world actually was and knows now how to connect the humans now that he let go of Abel. And because of this, he's able to connect more with the humans than he was before, which is why he doesn't act like he did from episodes 1 to 7. And going back to the whole villain arc thing, back in the first part of the show, we always knew he was going to be a villain. It was always a thing that was set up from the beginning, but we didn't think he was going to actually do villainous things. We thought he was just kind of recognized as a villain that didn't really realize that he was causing harm. He was always a villain, but he didn't realize he was one. Up until episode 7. At the very end of episode 7, when he realizes that the humans don't like what he's creating for them, he thinks he did something wrong, and Bubble even pushes him to think this further. He thinks he did something wrong because he doesn't understand that he didn't do what they wanted because he doesn't know what they wanted. He doesn't even know that there's no way to give them what they wanted until he does more research and finds out that there is a real world outside the circus. Before, again, he didn't know that there really was a real world. The real world was just the macroverse to him. He had no concept of real life. All he knew of was the circus and the worlds that he creates. So when the humans get mad at him for not giving them access to that real world, he just thinks it's their fault and that they just hate him because he doesn't realize there is a real world. But anyways, Kane, really complex character. And that's my rankings of all the characters in the Amazing Digital Circus. Thanks for listening. Don't get seasick. Bye.